It is the week leading up to Easter, and I am so excited for some very special Everyday Joy episodes this week. I have been having discussions with some friends and family and different people who have walked totally different journeys with God. And so over the next 5 days, we're going to be hearing 5 different stories of different people's journey of coming to know God. They're almost like little testimony episodes, but the focus is one on the cross and on that moment of them giving their lives to Jesus. But also, it's kind of about what was the lead up? What were the questions they were asking? What were the things they were wrestling with? And who were the people that were impacting their lives that led them to the point of coming to know Jesus? And the stories are all so unique, all so different, and I can't wait for you to hear them. The idea is that you'll be able to share these with friends and family, maybe even people who don't know Jesus, so that you can encourage them and say, hey, so-and-so's story sounds a little bit like yours. You should have a listen and be encouraged by how they've come to know God. So I hope you love this week's episodes. But even before we jump in, I am so excited. Everyday Joy Live is officially happening. This is definitely a behind the scenes experience of Everyday Joy. There's a very limited number of seats available. You can get them via the link in the show notes. It's completely free. There's easy free on-site parking. But I can't wait to see you there. It's going to be such a beautiful day. Let's jump right into today's conversation. Oh, happy Easter week. I am so excited for the public holidays. I love public holidays. Equally though, hot take, when you work a full-time job and there are public holidays involved, they are just as nice as they are frustrating. Because there is so much work to get done pre and post.
Yeah, that's right. Or to catch up. Yeah.
It's not as easy as it used to be back in the old school days, you know.
I know. Back in the day.
I know. But it is so good to be chatting and having you on the pod for this week. Now, you're actually joining me next week on the podcast as well, which I'm very excited about. But we've heard a version of your testimony before, and I'll link it in the show notes if anyone wants to hear more of our chats when you first came on the podcast. But for anyone who has never met you before, has only just started listening to the podcast, tell me a little bit about your journey. Did you grow up in a Christian house? What was your life like before Jesus? We're kind of focusing all this week on the cross, like that moment of I gave my life to Jesus and this is how things kind of turned around, or what pulled you to know who Christ was. But give us like a quick little summary of the context of what your life looked like.
Well, Roe BC is like, as in before Christ, is like still super chill. Yeah. Like still similar mannerisms and, you know, all of that sort of stuff.
Fun, funky gal.
I grew up in a family that's deep in culture. So like from New Zealand, Māori culture. Mm-hmm. My dad is Māori, and, you know, a lot of Māori culture is like strength and resilience and, you know, all of that sort of stuff. And camaraderie as well, like family, you know, it's tight and it's beautiful. I love Māori culture. And so I grew up in that family. We didn't have any Christian anything. Like I didn't know anything about God. And one of the things that really stood out to me reflecting back on my childhood is that I recall having moments where, like, we never said the L word, the love, we love you. That was not a thing. We didn't talk about emotions. We didn't show emotions. We didn't know how. And so things like God or Jesus or love, those 3 words in particular, I remember like physical reactions from. The discomfort in hearing those words was like, it was like cringe feeling. Like if someone said to me, well, except for the blasphemous version of Jesus, but sorry, not laughing. Sorry, Lord.
No. I get it.
Yeah, so it just had this visceral, physical reaction of, I feel really uncomfortable and I feel like someone's seeing through me.
Wow. So you never really stepped foot in a church? You didn't have an upbringing where you went to church on Easter or anything?
No, never.
Wasn't part of your life?
No, Easter was about Easter eggs.
Yeah. And like, how do you feel like you were in those seasons of life? Did you find life easy? Was it just kind of happening to you?
It was just kind of happening. Like I had a great childhood. Our family would go away on family trips and, you know, my parents were beautiful. I knew that I was loved. I just wasn't able to verbalize that or hear it.
Now, how old were you when you ended up giving your life to Jesus?
20, 22, 21.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Now, by this point, had you moved to Australia?
No.
No, not yet.
Not yet.
Okay. So tell me a little bit about what like the lead up to you becoming a Christian was like. What was the thing that was pulling on your heartstrings? Was there something that happened? Was there someone that spoke to you? Or were there a couple of things? What was kind of the story for you?
Well, the situation I was in, I had left school, left home when I was 16. So I was working full time. I was living independently. I had an apartment in the middle of town, small country town, which was basically the halfway house. And every Friday, Saturday night, it would be packed with people ready to go out partying on the town.
Wow.
You know, like people would just come and go all the time at our place. And I was completely surrounded by, you know, people that were just into sex, drugs, alcohol, cars, fast cars. Like they were the things. That was
the life.
Yep, they were the things that we all just kind of focused on. Some of those all at once.
Yeah.
Some of those spread out across the week. Yeah. And it wasn't like I'm choosing to have a poor lifestyle. It was just what it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, in that, so you're living this life, you've never been in church. What started to change things for you?
Well, looking back, it feels like it was really just one moment. Well, one group of days. So I was living with my boyfriend at the time, and his cousin and family are Christian, and they invited us to spend New Year's with them. So we went and stayed at their house, had a great time. They're a beautiful family. I knew they were Christian, and I was happy to respect their beliefs. And, you know, I didn't care. I just didn't want them to look too deeply into my eyes to see my soul. And then they invited us to church. And because of the culture that I grew up in, which is a lot to do with respect as well, of course, if you're going to church, I will come with you because I'm staying with you.
Yeah.
Like, that's just what you do. So I went along to their church. It was a Pentecostal church, which I didn't know what that was at the time. So I was expecting to walk into wooden pews and hymns and, you know, all of that sort of, and that was the picture of church in my head, but that was not what church was about. And it actually scared me. There was a moment where they did an altar call, and the cousin was like, "Oh, you guys should go up." I was like, "Oh, okay, sure," and just blindly went up there.
No, when you went up the front, did you think you were giving your life to Jesus?
No, I don't think it was even like a salvation.
Oh, it was just like a come get prayer or whatever.
Yeah. And we were standing at the altar, and like this person was laying hands on people, and people were falling over, and I was freaking out, and I'm pretty sure I flew over about 6 or 7 rows of chairs because I was like, "Get me out!" I freaked out. So yeah, I freaked out. But the great thing about that moment was it meant that questions could be asked. Obviously, the cousin and the family could see how freaked out I was, and so it opened up the conversation. And this was actually New Year's Eve.
Wow.
On New Year's Eve. So we went back to their house, you know, had a wholesome New Year's Eve, which I'd never had before. Like it was, it wasn't alcohol involved. There was, you know, it was games family and barbecue and people just having great conversation and connection time, which I loved. And so we were sitting in their lounge room until like 2 a.m, just talking about God. And through those conversations and them just sharing their heart, their stories, what they've seen, all of that sort of stuff, I was just like, I think I want to do that thing. I want to do that thing, what, like with inviting Jesus. Like I want to do that thing.
Was that by the end of the day? Wow.
And so, yeah, they prayed with me, and they left me with 2 things that really stuck with me. One was, if I need anything, I just call out to God. And the other one was, God loves me no matter what. And those 2 things just really helped me on my journey. It was months and months before I actually got connected into a church.
And then I guess on the other side of that, so you had that moment of salvation. Do you think like you understood right away like that, like who Jesus was, or do you feel like it was like a journey where you were like what did the kind of, I guess, weeks, months look like after that? Did things change?
Yeah. I think through what they had shared, I felt like I was different, and I felt like I was seen. Like God knew who I was now. And there was definitely not an immediate change. I still lived with my boyfriend. We were still doing the same old things, but I felt different. And the one thing I can put my finger on in the feeling side of things was that I felt hope. Like, it's not just a, just run of the mill, just go with whatever happens daily lifestyle. It is there's something more that I can be doing with my life. There's something more that God will use me for. Not that I could have used those words back then to describe it. There's just something more.
Yeah.
And it just made me feel hopeful.
Wow.
And I'd be, sitting outside having a cigarette, looking at the stars, going, like, what is happening? Like, what do I do? What is this life? Like, what do you want from me? And, just calling out to God.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible. I can't believe that it happened in one day almost.
Well, who I was dating at the time, my boyfriend, he had made the decision to become a Christian, like just through phone calls with his cousin leading up to that, months leading up to that. So I was hearing bits and pieces already. There were, little words of wisdom or, breaking down of the hard walls of my heart to be willing to hear the name Jesus and to hear about love. I remember the moment when I was sitting outside looking at the stars and calling out to God, like, something needs to change. And I realized that my environment wasn't going to help me grow. And so it was actually within about 2 months of giving my life to the Lord, my auntie called me from Melbourne and she said, hey, bub, you need to come and visit me and come and stay with us. And I was like, okay, never been to Australia before, but sure, I'll come. And so I was living with mum and dad at the time because I decided that the relationship I was in was not healthy. And so I bought a one-way ticket, stored all my stuff at my parents' house and jumped on a plane.
Wow.
And when I got here to Melbourne, nothing changed still. Like, my auntie that I was staying with is like underworld gang type. And I hope she doesn't hear this. I was still in an environment where there was still drugs, alcohol, fast cars, all of that stuff. And I was trying to find my people, like I would go to the pub or, do things to try and meet people on the weekends. I'd be driving around Melbourne by myself, like just wondering what's happening and knowing that I can just ask God for anything and he'll give it to me, potentially.
You're like, if you would like to, God.
Yeah, like big mansion would be great. And I just said, God, I need a church. So the turning point for me was when I was at work not long after I'd asked God for a church. And I was working as a dental nurse and one of our patients came in and she just stared at me and she's like, are you a Christian? And I looked at her and I kind of shrunk a little bit because I was like feeling a bit exposed and vulnerable. I was like, I don't know. And she goes, I've got something for you. And she gave me a Hillsong CD.
Wow.
And when I got home and no one else was at home, it was, put it in the CD player and I sat down at the table expecting it to be like,
hymns,
like perspectives of church, my gosh. And it was cranking Hillsong worship. And if you've listened to any of the episodes, you'll know that I'm a lover of worship. And so I was like jumping around the house and screaming, going, yeah, this is awesome. And so after I heard that CD, I was like, right, I need to go to that girl's church because this is awesome. So I ended up driving from the west of Melbourne all the way to the east of Melbourne, and it took me 2.5 hours because I didn't know anything about freeways to go to this church. Wow. And I just didn't stop. And that's when, people would impart their wisdom, they'd share the love of Jesus, they gave me a Bible, I got connected in with young adults that were on a similar journey to me. And that's where it all started.
And I think one thing that I'm loving about this week is how people's obedience, right? Like, as in the lady who gave you the Hillsong album.
Yeah.
Your, ex-boyfriend's family. At every point, someone could have said no to doing what God had called them to do. And yet they did it. Yeah. And it's the seeds and the watering and the growing. It's not that we're going to be perfect in one go. But I think it's so cool to see how that's impacted your life.
I'm so grateful that they were obedient. And the girl that gave me that CD, she lived near me. So then I had people to drive to church with. And she was actually the worship pastor as well. So like instant connections. Instant, so cool. Straight into my heart.
So cool, Ro. That's amazing. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode of the podcast. I hope that it encouraged you, that it's helped you through, and that it helps to challenge you through the season of life that you're facing, uplift you if you're feeling down. And most of all, I pray that you're able to draw closer and closer to God. I'm so excited to keep diving into the Word of God with you. I pray you're able to find moments of joy.